Welcome to the Sam and Joe VA Show, where we teach women just like you how to create your very own in-demand virtual assistant business.
We're your hosts, Sam and Joe, and get ready to have the control, flexibility, and freedom you've always dreamed of.
Welcome to episode 16. Is imposter syndrome holding you back?
Oh, it probably is. Today, we've got the fabulous Tracey Hancock here with us, and we are going to be picking Tracey's brain. Tracey is a business and life coach from the Waikato here in New Zealand. Welcome, Tracey.
Thank you. Great to be here with you, ladies, and what a topic to talk about, because it's a commonly used word, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, it is. I feel as though it's really common in the small business world, but it's actually not something I ever heard of until becoming a small business owner. Is there a reason for that? Is imposter syndrome something that everybody experiences, but it's only called imposter syndrome if you're a business owner?
So imposter syndrome, that's such a great way to start, because imposter syndrome actually came from some research about high-performing women. So women who were really, really successful. So the research was done on this group of women. There's been more research done since then, and it's included men, but it primarily was about like high-performing women who had huge successes in their life, but constantly felt like a fool. So that's where it actually came from. It actually had nothing to do with being a business owner or anything else, but it's kind of morphed over time.
Right.
So that's where it came from, from this research. Yeah.
Oh my goodness, I had no idea. There we go. Mm-hmm. So let's step back. Let's go back a step. What is imposter syndrome?
So I've got a definition here from that original research, and it's not feeling confident about your accomplishments, skills, and capabilities when you're setting off to do something new. Right. That's what it was. So that came from that research with that group of high achieving women where they didn't feel confident about their accomplishments, skills, or capabilities. That's it.
I think we've all experienced this, and I think predominantly women, maybe men at times too, but I think predominantly women feel that, especially when you're starting a new business, you're going to a networking event, or you're starting to tell people what you're doing, and you have that pang of, can I actually do this, or do I actually have the skills that's required? Because I think we all feel like we need to be an absolute expert to be able to then say, I'm a graphic designer, or I'm a web designer, or I'm a virtual assistant, or I'm an executive assistant. And I absolutely experienced that when I first started in business, where I would go along to a networking event feeling like a very young person in the room, and starting to talk about this business that I had just launched, but I didn't have any clients yet. And you do absolutely start to have that imposter syndrome. So Tracey, have you experienced it in your life?
So I've definitely experienced the fears and the doubts. Imposter syndrome isn't actually a term that I use. So I definitely experience the feelings. And what I get excited about is going, so I'm doing something new. Like, this is unfamiliar. Like, wow. So I guess through the years, like I've learned to reframe that for myself. But I absolutely agree. It's so common, isn't it, when we're doing something new, something that's unfamiliar, all those doubts come out. Like all those doubts, like I'm not good enough. I don't have that qualification. I don't have years of experience. I haven't got 100 clients. But like, we've all got to start somewhere. And if we're starting out beating ourselves up about being an imposter, the chances are we won't actually get very far.
And it's that feeling of just being an absolute phony and a fraud, isn't it? Despite kind of proven successes you may have had, it can kind of jump at you at any point. You may have been running a successful business for a few years, but I think certain people probably, I'm talking for myself actually, certain people, I know I often have just a random kind of this overwhelming feeling that I'm being an absolute fraud in the thing that it is that I'm trying to accomplish right then, despite obvious successes. So is that a kind of certain personality traits going to experience these types of feelings more than others?
It's a really good question. So there will be certain personality traits. If you're a high performer, if you want to actually achieve things, you're going to experience this fear, because fear is normal. But I think it's also going to come down to the beliefs that you have and the sort of the habits that you've developed over the years in response to being in situations where you feel challenged. So yes, traits, but also your beliefs, those things that you tell yourself. So in those moments when you're going, oh my God, I feel like a fraud, so your dialogue immediately starts to go down this path of I'm just winging it, people will find me out, then the imposter syndrome label comes up. And for some people, that's like a stop sign, and they just stop. And then actually connecting the dots and saying, actually, I have been successful. Hey, but this is new. I'm learning. And, you know, those successful business owners that I'm comparing myself to and, you know, escalating the sense of imposter syndrome, they had to start with no clients too at some point. Like, we forget all those things and get caught up in the story of I'm a fraud. And you know what? This is going to link back to stuff from throughout your life. So I can tell you, any time that I feel fear and what I guess people would label imposter syndrome, it's a pattern that I run in response to beliefs that I hold from experiences from my past.
That's very, very true.
So for me, this is like an invitation to be curious with kindness and go, hey, so what's driving that? Like, I want to do this thing in my business. I want to start this business. I want to be at this networking event. So what is it that I'm actually afraid of?
And so is that the question that you ask yourself? Yeah.
Every time. Like, what am I afraid of? So I got appointed into a management team and nobody on the team acknowledged my appointment. Like, nobody said anything. And so in my head, I immediately went, they don't think I deserve the job. They don't think I deserve to be at this table. And so I could have beaten myself up and gone, I'm an imposter and I'm a fraud. And I go, well, actually, I was interviewed and I've been through a process and I've shown some skills. So what's going on? So I asked them why nobody had acknowledged it. And there were a few tears when I asked, because I was a little emotional about this. And they went, well, there was different responses. One person said, well, it just seemed like the natural appointment. I didn't realize it was important that we acknowledge that because you're just the right person for the job. I was like, oh, wow. And someone else who just went, yeah, what he said. So what I've learned to do is just to ask myself what I'm afraid of. So in that case, I was afraid that, you know, I wasn't good enough and I wasn't being seen, that I wasn't respected, but actually it just hadn't crossed their mind to acknowledge me.
We make up stories all the time, don't we? And assume what other people are thinking of us and assume the worst about what they're thinking.
Absolutely. Yeah. And if we pick up Sam's example, like, and Joe, yours as well, like when you're a new business owner, what are you doing? You're comparing yourself to other established business owners, people who got big businesses, big agencies, big followings on social media, and immediately you're going, oh, I'm not good enough, I'm an imposter. It's just like, yeah, but they've been there for a hell of a lot longer. More established. So this is why imposter syndrome is a really common term. My concern is that people say it and it brings them to a halt. They just stop and they get consumed by it.
Because they've labelled it.
And so then you become an imposter. And you start to say, I am an imposter. I am a fraud. Well, no, you're not. You're Joe, you're Sam. And you've got these skills. So I think it's an invitation to go, what's going on here? With curiosity and kindness, because we don't want to be beating ourselves up, which we are. And I think as women, we're very good at doing. Giving ourselves a hard time.
So if we think, for everyone who's listening and they have those fears that come up and they ask themselves, like, what is that fear about? When they have answered that, what is the next step? Like, what do I actually do? So what is the next thing? Like, they've figured out where that fear comes from, what they're actually thinking. What do they do next?
So I think they've got to make sure they're being kind to themselves. Because as I said, the danger is we'll start beating ourselves up going, oh, that's ridiculous. I shouldn't be worried about that. And that whole shoulding, we start like shoulding all over ourselves, and that doesn't help us at all. Like I shouldn't be going this way. I should be able to sort it out. I should be able to get over it. It's just like, let's just pause and breathe for a minute and get real. The feelings are very real. And I just want to make that clear. I'm not saying imposter syndrome doesn't exist. What I'm saying is, if we focus on the feeling, we notice the feeling. Oh, I'm feeling that way again. Notice what you're thinking, because our feelings and our thoughts are related. So if I'm saying, I'm a fraud, I'm no good, I don't belong to, I don't deserve to be here, then that's going to drive our feelings in a certain direction. We're hardly going to feel confident and capable if our dialogue is, oh no, they're going to find out, you're terrible, you've got nothing to offer. So noticing your thoughts and noticing how that affects how you're feeling. So that would be the next step, doing this with kindness and curiosity. And then I think you want to, check in. Like for some people it might be, actually, you're tired, you haven't eaten, you're thirsty, go and take a break. Like that would be my next thing. Like just tune in. What do you need? Are you feeling sleepy? Are you thirsty? Are you hungry? Are you worried about the argument you had with your partner last night? Like, look at the context. Because I tell you what, and you ladies have probably experienced this. You've both got businesses, you've both been doing stuff that's well out of your comfort zone. If you're tired and hungry and thirsty and you haven't been outside and got sunshine, you're more vulnerable and likely to feel like you're not coping and that you are worried. Okay, so...
Yeah. So I was actually going to ask you about that in terms of, are there any kind of triggers that people experience that then leads onto these feelings of inadequacy? And I guess all of those are triggers, aren't they?
They sure are. So this is why, again, as women, we're not always so good at prioritizing our own self-care. But when we are taking care of ourselves, we feel stronger. We're less likely to get knocked by things that are happening. So taking care of yourself. So Jo, in terms of steps, I'd go, am I okay? Do I need to go to the loo? Like, do I need a drink? Like, what do I need? Like, how many times do we sit here holding on going, I've just got to keep going. I've just got to think that I'm okay. And you just need to go to the loo. So just check in with how you're doing. And I think reminding yourself of why you're doing what you're doing. Like, why it's important to you. So you both, I imagine, have, like, strong whys. And when you connect in with it, it's like you could move mountains.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is something that we teach in the members club too, where like everything has to come back to your why. Every decision that you make, have that why front of mind, because it just helps you make all of those decisions. And like you said, it just helps you move through those fears, reminding yourself why that you're doing this and, what you're wanting to achieve. And this is the way that you're going to achieve it, is by feeling fear all along the way, almost every day. Absolutely.
So that would be another step, is like developing strategies that help you when you feel afraid. We haven't got this far through our life without having done some scary stuff. And you think about what's really helped you. And this is what I love, for people to kind of develop their own toolkit, to have their own tools to draw on, to go, I'm feeling afraid. I just acknowledge it. There's so much freedom in acknowledging, I'm afraid. Okay, I'm afraid. You've kind of identified it. But I'm feeling afraid. Great. So, not great, but I've identified it.
No, you've identified it, yeah.
Yeah. So now what do I need to do? What tool can I pull out of my bag? And you've probably got your own tools that you may or may not be aware of. So, one of my favourites is I'll just go and have a cup of tea. Like the sensation of holding a hot cup in my hands, a nice tea. Wow, that just helps me in so many ways. The world just seems so different when I've just had that moment. So developing our own toolkit, that when we feel afraid, we draw on those tools. We dip into and use whatever we need to, because that gives us strength. Yeah.
One of the things I do when I'm feeling like that is I collect like all the thank you cards and Christmas cards and stuff that I give to clients. I keep them, so I've got them in a little kind of pile. It's nothing fancy, but if I'm feeling really low and really doubting myself, I'll pull those out and I'll read through them. I'll read through all the lovely comments, or even pull up the testimonials page on my website and I'll scroll through and I'll read all these wonderful things that people have written about me, because in that moment, I'm not believing them in myself. So I need somebody else to be telling me that I am good enough and that I'm really good at what I do. But because I'm at home working by myself, there's no one there to tell me. So I need to get that from somewhere else.
Yeah, it's a great strategy. And, you know, and Jo, you'll have some as well in your toolkit. So knowing that we can access those things, we don't need anyone's permission. Like, I think too that some of this imposter syndrome is we're almost holding back, waiting for someone's permission that it's okay, that you're okay, that you can take care of yourself. So I think, you know, getting to know yourself, understanding what triggers you. So, you know, good self-care routines, because you know that when you're taking care of, you're stronger. Cool. You know that in certain circumstances, or if someone says like a particular statement or a word, you know that that triggers you. So have a response sort of up your sleeve and ready. Remembering your why, like as I look over to my wall over here, I've got my, you know, my mission, my vision, my values, like I've got stuff up there that reminds me of my why. Like, create an environment that reminds you of why you're doing what you're doing. And Sam, as you said, like your testimonials, you know, have those where you can access them. Like, set yourself up for success. You know, surround yourself with the things that you need, the people that lift you up. Because I don't know about you, but like when I first said I was going to go into business, I've almost been in business 7 years now. And I had so many people say it's the stupidest thing to do. It's just crazy. And so I had to make a conscious choice to go, I'm going to need to talk with some other people, because this is just driving me into a space where I'm thinking, maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe I can't do that. And that's where that imposter syndrome would come in. So when I talked to other people who'd done it, you know, some had been successful, some hadn't. But changing the people that I was talking to and listening to, huge difference. So like, what can you do in your own life? Like, let's get really practical with some of these things that you can do. I want to just add in here that for some people, you know, they'll be listening to this and they'll go, yeah, I can do that. For others, the pattern will be so ingrained, they'll be going, that lady is from some outer space planet and doesn't even get it. And I'm hearing it, because it can become so ingrained that it's like you don't have to think about it. And that takes some deeper work. So I'm not suggesting this is easy. Some people will find it easier than others. Yeah.
That's a really good point. I think although I experience imposter syndrome, by the way, what do you call it? If you don't call it imposter syndrome, what do you call it?
It's just like I'm feeling afraid.
Okay.
Yeah. So I just don't label it. Yeah.
Gotcha. So when I'm feeling afraid and it happens, I don't know, probably once every few months, it'll kind of jump up at me. Something's happened. I've forgotten where I was going with that. It was a really good point.
That's perfect though. Just what you did. So like you ladies, like I do some lives and some groups, and sometimes I'll lose my train of thought. Now the danger is we get into this pattern of going, oh my God, I'm not good enough to be doing this. But instead we just do what we just did. We just had a bit of a laugh and go, oh look, we're all human. We do these things. We have these moments. And we don't create a story around it, because it's those stories that start to influence our thoughts and what we do and what we think we're capable of. Instead, we just had a laugh and we moved on. And well, if it comes back to you, Sam, just tell us then.
Well, it has actually. It's come back. So that feeling of fear happens to me quite often. You know, not on a daily basis, but you know, every few months, I'll feel the fear. And I guess one of the things you've been talking about is that talking to yourself with, was it kindness and
curiosity?
Yeah. And that's probably something that I haven't done. Like, I think I deal with those feelings of fear in quite an aggressive manner. And I don't know where that comes from. So you talking about being kind of kinder to myself is definitely something I'm going to start trying. So what I tend to do is I acknowledge, I recognize it. Okay, this is what's happening. This is why I'm feeling this way. I acknowledge it. Right, I'm feeling fearful. This is imposter syndrome. And then I just tell it to fuck off. I literally out loud say, fuck off. I don't need you right now. I've got stuff to do. So
you know what, Sam? I'm now going to have to turn on the explicit yes for this episode. but you're so right.
It's me. I feel like it's me.
Yeah, taking control of that and actually like telling it to get the hell out of here. Like, I don't need you, or thank you for helping me. You know, we've talked about this in a previous episode, caveman times. Yes, the fear is there for a reason, to protect us. So thank you for like letting me know this, but I don't actually need that right now because I'm okay, and putting it aside and telling it to go away. Absolutely. Yeah. But it's not about saying like, or trying to not acknowledge it at all. It's about acknowledging it and then saying I'm okay and putting it to the side, isn't it, Tracey?
Yeah, that's exactly it. And I love what you said, because people often think that, oh, so you mean I just ignore it? It's like, no, don't ignore it, because anything we ignore, if you imagine like in a swimming pool, you had one of those beach balls that inflated with air and you tried to push it under, it's going to come out and it's going to create a bigger splash because of the pressure. And it's like, if we ignore those feelings, they will come out and it will be ugly and it'll be messier than it ever needed to be. Whereas if we just go, that's how I'm feeling. Sam, you've got your approach. And, you know, Joe, the one about, yep, thank you. I hear you, but I don't need you right now. I'm safe. And that's perfect, because, you know, our brain's got two functions. Well, our brain's got one function, to keep us alive, and it does it two ways. One, it keeps our internal systems ticking over. Like, we don't have to think about making our heart beat or our stomach digest food. It does that. The other thing is, it's alert to danger. And so danger is something that's unfamiliar, something that's new, something that we're not sure about. And the moment we pause, our brain's going, hang on a minute, there's danger. She paused, there's danger. And it cues a stress response. So if we can just go, in this moment, right now, I'm safe, like I'm okay. Networking events. You know, I'm an introvert, so networking events, I like to think, you know, through how I'm going to approach it. So I always make sure that I've got a space where I can just land. Like, I get there, I land, take a breath, I let myself know that it's all good, it's all safe, and then I carry on. So as you start to get to know yourself and know those kind of triggers, know the things that work for you, then do them, because the fear's not going anywhere. The most successful people in the world will still tell you they feel fear. It's normal. It's one of our emotions.
And that's why it's really important, and I think you'd agree with me, Tracey, that when you're feeling this way, to talk about it with somebody that is in that kind of safe little bubble that you know is going to understand, because they are more than likely they feel the same way occasionally, and so it makes it more normal to you. You don't feel ashamed about it. It is what it is. Everyone, or a lot of people, everyone feels it at some point, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And so, like, I'm a coach, and people go, "Oh, you've got it all together," and I'm like, "Are you kidding me? I'm human." And like, as a human being, we're going to have like ups and downs. We're going to feel strong some days and not so strong another day. It is about the acknowledgement, and it is about talking about it and realizing that if you're watching somebody on social media, they're putting out a curated feed of what's going on in their life. You're not seeing the real picture. So it's only when you have those trusted people, as you said, Sam, and you have those conversations that you realize, actually, I'm not the only one. This is normal. And I don't have to label it. I don't have to label myself. I'm experiencing something that's very natural and normal as part of the human experience. I think one of the challenges is when we're growing up, we're not taught how to manage our emotions. And you know, from a very young age, we're creating stories. So anytime I'm triggered and I feel that fear and imposter syndrome, I can link that back to, you know, experiences that I've had and stories I've created at a very young age. That's
we instinctively do that to our kids, don't we? Where we say, no, you're okay, you're okay, you're okay. When they're crying, or when they're, you know, something's happened or they're angry, we're trying to always stop them from being whatever that emotion is, and always trying to keep them calm when, actually, experience emotions, and feeling those emotions is part of being human, and like you say, that human experience.
Yeah, it so is. And I guess, again, as humans, and particularly, women, because we're quite nurturing. Well, the feminine energy is nurturing. We don't want to see people in pain or upset, so we go, oh, you'll be right, you'll be fine, just, and it becomes like we've got to be positive and happy to be normal. Instead of embracing, it's like, imagine it, like rainbows are beautiful with all the different colours, but imagine if we pulled out some colours and said, oh no, we don't want those colours. It's like, it's a rainbow with multiple colours, emotions, many emotions. We can't pull them out. We experience them all, and realising that if we're feeling fear, now there's like actual danger when your life is on the line. I'm not talking about that kind of a situation that triggers fear. But when we think about, like, again, as business owners, we're doing something new. If the fear is letting us know that we are doing something new, we're stretching ourselves, we're growing, how exciting is that? That we're actually getting to do something. We're aligning with our why, we're helping people. That's really cool. And so it's the story that's influencing all these thoughts and what we do next. So if we feel fear and go, wow, okay, I am feeling afraid. And this is new. Like I've, say it's the first time you're speaking on stage. I've never spoken on stage before. Wow, I get to do this. So you get to choose what you think and say, instead of like stopping going, no, I'm a fraud, they'll know it, I'm not going any further. You're afraid. Look at all that you've achieved. And if you've gone, oh no, stopping.
Yeah.
That's right. And I think if we don't experience fear, then we're not actually pushing ourselves at all, and we're playing it safe all the time, and not, growing as a person, and we're not growing as a business owner, and we're not achieving things that we want to achieve, because you can't achieve your goals without some fear. Absolutely not.
Yeah.
So true.
Within that sort of the human condition, so to speak, within us we've got an innate need for growth. But we also have this need for safety and certainty. So growth and safety and certainty are going to clash quite a lot. We want growth, which means we're going to have to do something new, something we've not experienced before. And that's going to come up against, but I need to be sure, and I need to be certain, and I need to be safe. And this is where that self-talk is so important, recognizing that I am stretching, I am afraid. Okay, but this, I'm safe. This is good. I can take some small steps. So Jo, going back to your comment before about like, what's a process? It's like, small steps are perfect for helping us build our confidence, for doing something new, for, when you set up this podcast, if you've never done a podcast before, you'd go, oh, I've got no right to do that. I'm going to be terrible. People will realize I don't know anything.
Are you in my brain right now? Are you in my brain?
And you go, okay, well, there's millions of people doing podcasts, and there are people who've done it before that I can talk to, and we can start to take small steps. I can listen to a couple of podcasts, and I can get a feel for what I like, or I can, work with someone so that we're sharing it. Like, there's so many little steps that we can take when we recognize I'm feeling afraid, I'm not sure, I'm going to check in with myself, and then I'm going to look at the smallest of actions to take. Like you're in episode 16. You had to start at number 1, and you had to face the fear of, oh my God, is this going to work? Can I do it? What is going to happen?
Yeah, I mean, I still feel that that feeling right now, even at episode 16. I don't listen. I'm like an actor. You hear about actors, they never watch themselves on the screen, and I've never understood it before. But it's the same with us. Like I purposely go, okay, I'm going to trust Jo that Jo's listened to it and that it's okay. I put my trust in Jo to not put anything out there that is absolutely horrible, because it means I don't have to listen to myself or watch myself.
So it's interesting, because what would be the worst thing that could happen if you watched or listened to yourself? What would be the worst thing?
What would be the worst? I might feel a bit awkward. I don't know. I might just go, oh, she stumbled there, or oh no, she shouldn't have said that, or oh, what was she there? I don't know.
Yeah, so it's fascinating. So at some point, as part of your stretch, you might go, actually, I'm going to listen to 5 minutes. I'm just going to listen to 5 minutes. Because imagine what you could gain from that when you realise, the information that you've shared. Because I don't know about you, but I find this in coaching sessions, when I'm doing stuff online, when I'm doing stuff like in live events in person, that I often don't remember all of what I said.
Oh,
And
yeah, all the time.
Yeah, all the time, because you're in the moment and you're having a conversation. Oh, and that's a good point. Let's come back to that too. But so you're in the moment, you're having the conversation. And so when you listen back, it's funny because often I'll go, oh, that sounded good. I'll use that again. Wow. And you can be quite surprised. Other times, I worked with a speaking coach and he made me watch recordings of myself so I could look at my hand gestures. And he'd make me listen to myself so I could hear my voice and what was going on. I learned so much.
Yeah.
So much. And yeah, it was a little bit awkward. And I'd go, is somebody going to say that I'm just like full of myself or like listening to myself? But it's like, it's a great way to learn.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
It is
I
because
accept your challenge.
Yeah, and it is. I agree, because now I can consciously make small changes. I realized that I would say, yeah, absolutely, every time that Sam finished talking, and then I would say that every time, because I would actually have to review the transcription. And I noticed how many times I would say like. It's such a common thing for me to just throw like I would say like that as I go through. And I had no idea that I was actually saying that.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of ums. And so when you listen back to it, absolutely, you can pick up those things to make small changes.
Mm. And you don't need to beat yourself up about it, because again, with kindness and curiosity, you can go, if I was to like identify one thing that I want to work on for next time.
Yeah.
So for Joe, like, I'm just going to be conscious of not using like.
Mm-hmm.
So and again, this is a story we tell ourselves. It's like, instead of going, oh, it'll be horrible and funny and awkward and stuff, it's just like, wow, it's an opportunity to learn. And we get to choose the words and the thoughts that we have. So we're probably just defaulting to a pattern where, no, I can't do that, it's too hard. Oh, no, I can't. It's like, well, what if you could? What if you could? And you took a small step, like, I'm just going to listen to 5 minutes and I'm just going to see how that sounded. And then maybe, like in a few months' time, you've listened to a whole thing. Like, you don't have to go from 0 to
100.
Good to know. Good to know. Yeah. Although I think probably after listening, doing that and listening to 5 minutes, it probably wouldn't take me long to get over all of those feelings that I think I'm going to feel.
Exactly.
And one thing I try and remind myself too is that when I'm listening to people, or listening to speakers, or at a networking event hearing people talk about their business, even if they stumble, even if they're not that articulate, even if they have moments where they forget what they're going to say, I'm not actually really judging them that much at all because of that, because I know that I would probably do that. And we are quite forgiving of other people, but we're really hard on ourselves and assume that everyone is making way bigger judgments of us than they actually are. Because most people are in their own head thinking about themselves and what you're saying relates to them, and, how it relates to them. They're thinking about themselves and how everything that's coming at them relates to themselves, rather than anything to do with you or the judgments on you. So I definitely remind myself of that quite a lot.
That's a good thing to remind, because I think we're our own biggest critics a lot of the time, aren't we?
Absolutely, we're our number one.
Yeah.
And we've also got the opportunity to be our own biggest cheerleader.
Yes.
Well. We've just got to shift the mindset to go, if we were reviewing the podcast, it's like, I want to find one thing that I would like to work on to improve. It doesn't mean you're a disaster. It just means you're going to choose one thing to work on, because we're always growing. And again, if we take like business owners, people go, oh, once you've been in business for a while, you'll have it all sorted and you'll be sweet and you'll know everything. It's just like, are you kidding me? It just keeps evolving. The thing is, we get better at managing through the change. We get better at, hopefully, looking after ourselves and being kinder and more curious and having strategies that helps us with each evolution. So, for me, when I hear about, people struggling with the fears and the doubts and the imposter syndrome, it's like, just take a breath. Let's just get some kindness in this situation, some curiosity, and just explore what's going on. You don't have to solve it all at once. Like, we so often go from like the 0 to 100, or, we set a goal and expect ourselves to have achieved it the very next moment. It's just like, what are some small steps you can take? Because that's how we build confidence.
Imperfect action. So would you say perfectionism is one of the kind of traits of a high-performing business owner, if they're the ones that kind of feel this a lot?
So it's really interesting, because perfectionism is often the defense mechanism. It's something to keep us safe. So if we've been criticised growing up and through our life, we'll often go and strive for perfection, because perfection we perceive as something that will keep us safe. Because if we're perfect, no one can criticise us. So perfectionism is this mechanism that we think will keep us safe, but actually it doesn't, because we just get so tied up in this pursuit of trying to get everything perfect, and then we beat ourselves up. So again, I'd go back to understanding the drivers around what's perfection giving you, what's it protecting you from, what are you afraid of. High performers and perfectionism, some do, but again, it's going to depend on what's going on in the background. So again, curiosity. Where's that coming from? So I don't consider myself to be a perfectionist, but I do like to be thorough, because if I'm thorough, then nobody will go, well, she's an idiot, she doesn't know what she's doing. So that's something I've needed to work on, because I've had a pattern of being told that I don't have anything to contribute, or I'm not smart, or I'm illogical and irrational. And so I like to be thorough, but perfectionism is not my thing, but I also consider myself to be a high achiever. So I think we want to be careful with labels and tying them to certain people. The more you can understand yourself, the better you're going to be able to navigate your way through life and business.
Good point.
Oh, I love this episode. This has been amazing, Tracey. I know that a lot of our listeners and those in our networks, they really struggle with this. And I think because they come into the networking groups and they see so much success and people celebrating, that they've gotten clients, or know that they're growing their team, and they just think, oh, I'm never going to get there. But I think the message from me to those people is that, Tracey, you talked about it earlier, where if you surround yourself by people that are successful and encouraging, and a great network of people, use the network to help push you forward, rather than using it as a network to just feel bad because you're comparing yourself all the time. So it's all about how you use that network, and who you're building relationships with, and who you're surrounding yourself with.
Yeah, because instead of comparing yourself to them and then putting yourself down, because what we tend to do is we overvalue everyone else and we undervalue ourselves. So by all means, like, I follow people who are in a similar field, massive audiences, been in business a really long time, but I want to know how they're doing what they do. Like, I want to learn the behind the scenes stuff, not go, I'll never be like that. It's like, well, they've got about 30 years on me. And, tens of hundreds. So, like, look to people for, I don't know, for inspiration or for ideas, or for, I want to like figure out and understand what that person does. I want to learn from them, rather than going, I'll never be them. So, it's being conscious of our dialogue.
So this is one of the things you help your business and life coaching clients with, isn't it? I would imagine that you see this come up a lot.
All the time, with people from all walks of life, all types of bank balances, and success in their life, and all those common signs of success. And it's such a common theme. And the moment that they start to unpack where it's all being driven from, where all the fear's coming from, and they get really honest about what they want for their life, they go, actually, this is okay. I'm okay. So we give them, I guess, permission to become the architect of their own life, to go, how are you feeling? What do you want? Where are you at? What are you doing? And align that to like their truth instead of beating themselves up about what they're not and who they're not like. Yeah. So very, very, very common. Very common. So, if people are in a circle of friends or colleagues or peers or whatever, and it doesn't get talked about, so they feel like they're the oddball. But this is common. We just don't talk about it enough. The fears, the worries, the doubts, the negative self-talk. We don't talk about it enough.
No, we don't. Yeah, I agree with that.
Fantastic. So, Tracey, where can people find more information about you, from you? Like, where do they go?
Probably the best place to start is my website, so traceyhancock.com. And from there, there's all sorts of things on social media, on Instagram and Facebook and Pinterest, my new love. So, so lots of resources and information on the website is a good starting point.
Oh, awesome. Tracey, thank you so much for joining us today and for your time. It really is always such a joy chatting with you. And I think my biggest takeaway is that, look, these feelings of self-doubt, totally, absolutely normal, but the key is not to let it stop you from whatever it is that you're wanting to do. Don't freeze. Don't let it freeze you.
That's it. Embrace that feeling. It's normal. And then take your next step.
Thanks to everyone for listening to this episode of the Sam and Joe VA Show. If you'd like to find out more, head to the Savvy School website to check out the amazing Members Club and find more free resources.
You can find us at savvyschool.co.nz.